0 to 60 can define a performance car, but it's the fastest 60 to 0 that's the aim of Tarok's brakes. From road cars to race cars, circuits, special stages, or the autostrada, nothing reduces speed like Tarok's brakes. Italy gave the world the art of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. Tarok's has given drivers the art of stopping. For more information and to acquire your own masterpiece, visit tarox.co.uk. Yes, it's me, Mark Stone, and this is the Backseat Driver Podcast. It's the fastest, it's the friendliest, and it's for all the family. The Gas Shocks 116 Trophy and 120 Coupe Cup are the fastest growing race series in the UK, taking in 6 one-hour races and 8 sprints at all the top circuits. Visit 116trophy.com to find out more and get yourself behind the wheel. I'd like to introduce to the Backseat Driver Radio Show an author, a journalist, a rally driver, a man who in many ways does exactly what I do, but just for a change, he's on the receiving end. Peter Barker, welcome to the Backseat Driver Radio Show.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's a very great pleasure to be here.
Now, the interesting thing is, a lot of people who are, shall we say, involved in racing and rallying came about it purely by chance. A previous guest, Carsten LeBlanc, got into racing both modern Aston Martins and classic cars by seeing the photograph of his dentist's Aston Martin on the wall. I got into it by sheerly a purely chance meeting with somebody. And you seem to get into it in your 20s by reading 3 books. The 7-Year Itch by Marcus Chambers, International Rallying by the legendary Stuart Turner, and Rally Navigation by Martin Holmes. Peter, how did all this come about? Where did 3 books turn into, shall we say, a very, very illustrious career?
Well, Mark, I have to go back a little bit further, another 10 years back, when I was about 10 years old, and my father, who was a doctor, took the whole family from England, where we lived in the Midlands, Worcestershire, to Uganda in Africa for 3 years because he had a contract to do some medical research there. And the very first year we were there, 1970, a rally took place in the capital, Kampala, Uganda, and he took me down to see it. It was the start of the East African Safari Rally. And I was thrilled to bits. I saw these bright reds, in those days, Datsuns were the things to have, Datsuns and Escorts. The Datsun 1600 Travel S and the 240Z came along slightly later, and I saw my heroes in these cars, wonderful rally drivers who'd grown up on Mini Coopers and other vehicles. Suddenly they were in these Japanese cars, and they were belting along roads just much faster than my poor old dad could drive. So I was smitten, absolutely smitten by this, and I remembered the names of the people and looked them up and found out about their history. And then you're right, when I was a university student, age 20, I think I got Rally Navigation by Martin Holmes out of the library because I was interested in maps and map reading, and that looked pretty fascinating. So in 1981 I passed my driving test just about as soon as I could, and in 1982 I borrowed £300 off my then girlfriend, poor woman, and looked in the local paper in Southampton area where I lived, and there was a 1967 Mini Cooper for sale. So I bought that, and the rest is history, really. That started me off on road rallies, and I think the very first rally I ever did, I drove, and I finished plumb last because I didn't really realise how important the navigator was, and the navigator was a novice as well. Then I switched to navigating, and I did that for a number of years, and then driving. So, yeah, that's kind of how it got started.
I mean, in many ways, you speak to a lot of rally drivers, and navigation is their first step into it. I've tried navigation for one driver on 2 occasions, and he always said to me, there will never be a third attempt at this. I
I see.
I've always said, it's a strange thing to say, I sit in the co-driver's seat, or I used to do on the 2 occasions, look out. I didn't look at the notes because I always used to say, I want to know what I'm hurtling towards.
Yes.
I have been able to do the odd one on tulips. Tulips are easy to follow, and it's turn left, turn right, straight on at a set distance. That I can just about manage, but true navigation is an out-and-out art form.
Yes, it certainly is. I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that the great navigators back in the day, Henry Liddon and others, were very short-sighted. Henry could barely see beyond the windscreen. So when he was sitting next to Timo Mäkinen or Rauno Alton, and they were hurtling towards, as you say, rocks and the scenery, he just couldn't see it. All he could feel was the movement of car through his bottom, and that was enough to keep him going. So if you ever look at pictures of the top drivers back in the day, the co-driver always had their head down. They just weren't looking. And to some extent that translates into historic rallies because we were using the same cars and the same thing applied. My long-term co-driver and great friend Willie Cave has perfectly good vision, but he deliberately wears glasses whilst co-driving that allow him to see, navigating, which allow him to see the maps and the notes and not really out of the car very much because he doesn't need to.
Yeah. One of the great co-drivers of the 60s, of course, lives quite near to me, Mike Woods, who was Tony Fowles' co-driver.
Yes, indeed. Great man.
The one thing I've always found about co-drivers, they tend to be, shall we say, a very unique people. Some of the times they're actually quite dry about matters, but they are a very unique type of person as a co-driver, I personally have always found.
Yes, indeed, I agree. I think they have to be very stoic, long-suffering people, very resourceful. And whilst the driver's, doing his or her nut, trying to get the car around the next bend at the maximum speed, they have to be thinking ahead. There's a lot of car management involved, as well as and people management, as well as the actual navigation and the keeping the car on the road at speed. It's a very complicated job.
I was going to say, because besides actually reading the maps and calling the directions, etc., the co-driver's job is, in many ways, is managerial. The driver is there to drive. The co-driver does literally everything else.
Indeed. And the best co-drivers also manage their drivers. If I may be permitted to tell you one anecdote, the very first Monte Carlo historic rally I ever did, and I've done 14 now, was with Willie Cave, whom I mentioned, and we were driving my Mini Cooper up the Col de Cirini, a very famous stage, mythical Col de Cirini. First time I'd ever been up there in anger. I was doing my best. I'd done lots of rallies in England, some of them with Willie, and I thought I was doing pretty well, sort of bouncing between the snowbanks and skidding across the road and doing everything you can in a 1 litre Mini. Anyway, it became obvious we were falling behind the time we should be achieving, because on that rally you have to achieve a set speed all the time. You have to be on a particular second as you climb up the hill. And we were falling back, and it was going 10 seconds late, then it was 20 seconds late, then it was 30 seconds late. Anyway, so Willie turned to me as I was hurtling between the snowbanks and the little cars screaming along on his tiny studded tyres. He said, "Peter." I said, "Yes, Willie." I was driving hard. He said, "You can go faster if you like." And this was enough to really upset me and make me angry, which is just what he wanted me to do. And so I found a little bit more speed, and we started to take the time back, and we went back 15 seconds, 10 seconds. And by the time we got to the top of the Cirini, where he knew the timing point was, we were on time. And that is just man management. That's just how to, get the best out of your driver.
Yeah. Because, that was one of the things when I co-drove. I was told, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, and make sure this is there. And then you think to yourself, what the hell's this got to do with reading maps?
But very little, yes. But it's a rally as a crew, as a team, and brighter and more experienced people than me have pointed out, there's a four-way split. There's the driver, the co-driver, the car, and the support team, and all of those things have to be in perfect form to win a rally. It's a very complicated effort.
Because, the other thing was, the term co-driver literally means that. I don't know if it actually happens in modern rallying, but back then as such, the co-driver many times will drive between the special stages and allow the driver to rest. I don't think it happens these days.
I don't think so. These days rallies are more like sprints. It's office hours. There's the very limited night running, certainly in the top flight of rallies. But back in the day where rallies went on for 5 days and nights, the co-driver had to drive. The poor driver couldn't drive all that distance. So you had to be a competent driver as well as everything else, which makes it even more impressive, frankly.
Now, I mean, your career as such was Mini Cooper based, and is Mini Cooper based, because at some point we will move on to your book, The Mini Cooper, 1961 to 2000. But you now drive, shall we say, what is potentially a far more comfortable Triumph 2000, but you still do take part in all the big classic, well, they're now classic rallies. They were the rallies back in the day as such.
Yes, indeed. Well, when I first started, the Mini was a cheap car. Even the Mini Cooper wasn't that expensive back in the day, and we're talking 40 years ago now. Parts were, readily available. And then when historic rallying came along in the early 90s, I embraced that with a will, and a friend of mine and I, Nigel Chetwynd, we prepared a car specifically for rallying, a Mini Cooper. I bought a pretty clapped-out Mini Cooper, and we prepared it. And it was just a great car. It was for the national rallies at the time. It was great, and yes, we did many of the. As time went on, I did many of the classic events: the Targa Rusticana, the Rally Bristow. I did the RAC historic rally a couple of times, which was a stage event, but essentially the same car. Just put a cage in, and found some mud coping tyres and a sump guard, and off we went. So the little Mini did brilliantly, and it lasted me until 2008, when it became so valuable, this particular car, because it had an X-Works registration number.
Yeah.
That I sold it, bought another Mini for a few years, and then finally in 2012 I thought, that's it, I've really gone as far as I can with the Mini. And I took a break for 6 years. I went and lived and worked abroad. But when I came back to Britain, I was casting around for a different vehicle, and that's when I got into Triumph. I wanted a break. I wanted to move on from Minis. I just didn't think there was much point in repeating history. So, now I'm now 60 years old, and in my old age, the Triumph 2000 is extremely comfortable. I can sit there in comfort, and the suspension works, and it doesn't jar my backbone, and I don't break my teeth and bite through my tongue every time I go over a bump. The Mini Cooper is a young man's and young woman's car, I have to say. I know there are very eminent drivers who stick with them, but they are pretty punishing things in their full, race or rally tune form. And I decided to move on rather than make a fool of myself and not be as good as I used to.
Now, one of the big rallies you've just finished doing, and it was a good few weeks ago now, was Le Jog, which is Land's End to John O'Groats. That has got to be one of the most arduous rallies, what you might call modern classic rallies, going anywhere. Just talk us through it. What exactly is Le Jog?
Well, it's actually a trial, not a rally. Although it's loosely termed a rally, and a rally is simply a gathering of motor cars. It's a trial in the sense that cars are pitched against other cars, historic cars of the same engine capacity and roughly manufacturing period. So I was in class 6 with my Triumph 2000 with my good friend Rolf Pellini as a navigator, excellent navigator, and we were up against other vehicles of about the same age, Volvos, and I think there was a Escort in Mexico and one or two other cars. But it's really a trial of reliability. Now that particular rally, trials I should call it, starts at Land's End, as you quite rightly say, and ends at John O'Groats 4 days later. There are 2 nights without sleep, effectively. There's a short break for a few hours sleep after the first night, and then the second night is out of bed completely. Sorry, he's in bed completely, and then the third night he's just continuous day, night, day. It's incredibly arduous. By the time you get to northern Scotland as a driver, you are just exhausted, and the later part of that last night was very tough this time. Very, very cold, freezing weather, sheet ice across the road. It was almost impossible to keep the car on the road, let alone keep to the time. And some of my competitors did extremely well to get anywhere near the right time.
I know you commented that your co-driver at one point was out of the car, pushing against the left-hand side to actually stop it sliding off the road.
Indeed. Well, we came to a triangle in the road which we had to go round in true British fashion. Two sides of what we got a triangle here in England, and the car just didn't want to know about it. I turned into the triangle and it just started spinning, and then of course it was riding towards the outside of the road, which was a tremendous drop off this mountainside. Rolf, bless him, being 6 foot, large sort of Italian gentleman, leapt out the car and sort of held it on the road, and pushed it just enough that eventually the back wheels found some grip and it shot off up the road again, to a point where he could get back in.
Yeah.
But I mean, if he hadn't done that, we would have just slid straight off the road. There was no stopping it.
Now, the one thing the jog is known about, and this year it doesn't seem to have been as bad, is, shall we say, the attrition rate, not only on the crews but on the cars. But I think this year has been, or shall we, last year as it is now, was slightly kinder on the cars, but immeasurably more demanding on the navigators.
I agree, yes. There was lots of navigational work to be done. The night section through Wales was very tricky to find all the right slots, or road junctions, and again, some of the other sections were very difficult. I think you and I met just before the section over the Lancashire moors, which was fantastic, wonderful.
Yeah, but you and I met at Grimsor, which is just outside right. Preston, where yes. I remember you saying civilization, because it was one of the few occasions that the route brings you into, shall we say, more densely populated areas, and you get the chance to go to the toilet and have a cup of coffee.
Well, yes, absolutely, well put. I mean, I think we had all of 10 minutes in the particular public house we met you in, but that seemed like 10 minutes of civilization after lots of time out in the wilds. Yeah, it's a fantastic event, just a wonderful event, the jog. It's an epic, and it attracts crews from all over Europe and perhaps all over the world because it's so hard. If you completed the jog, you're very proud of yourself. You mentioned the attrition rate on vehicles. I think out of the 70 cars that started, 65 finished, which is a very high number.
Yeah.
I can only say that the conditions were dreadful. I mean, it's really impressive that people can prepare their cars well enough to do that. And some of the cars were just about standard. So, yeah, I mean, I think there was a good standard car prep, and people kept them running. But yes, it was fearsome navigation, really difficult.
Now, you mentioned the cars, and that's the one interesting thing about classic rallying. I mean, yours is a prepared car, but we had a Citroën 2CV. There was, surprisingly, a Bristol 411, which is probably one of the most unlikely rally cars you will ever encounter. Volvo Amazons, Porsche. You can never do a classic rally without a few Porsches around the place, but there was a 928, which I personally wouldn't consider to be... It wouldn't be my first choice in rally car. But in classic rallying, as you just said, there is an enormous cross-section. There's a beautiful old Peugeot, 4 Series Peugeot. Classic rallying does not mean that you have to have an X-Works car as such, or X-Works style preparation. You can do it in virtually anything.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, anything of the right period, and as you say, some quite unlikely vehicles taped to the road. I mean, a car as valuable as a Bristol over some of those roads in Wales, I mean, that would just be pure pain for me, because you're doing so much damage to the car down those lanes. I'm not sure whether the Bristol finished, but it certainly wouldn't have been my choice of car, simply because it's easily damaged and very, very expensive to repair. So generally people stick to the kind of, I mean, not everybody has a Porsche or an Escort. They are the favourites because they were brilliant rally cars back in their day, and they still are. But it's nice to see a bit of variety. I mean, I always get compliments on the Triumph 2000 because there's relatively few of them. There's only three that I know of running in Britain. There's a few on the continent. So it's nice to turn up in something different, and actually it does get you an entry in some of the more prestigious events because of its unusual nature. But actually that's part of the fun. We were following two Italians who'd never done a rally before in their lives, and they were driving an Alfa Romeo GTV, I think it was, and this thing looked as it comes straight off the streets of Milan. It had zero preparation, and I was astonished to see it at the end, Mark. I really wouldn't have bet money on it lasting, but it did. Incredible.
But but you mentioned like your Triumph. I mean, back in the day, without overusing what is now a hackneyed expression, they were a common rally car, weren't they? I mean, the factories rallied these. When Triumph rallied, it used its saloons and its sports cars. There was nothing unusual about seeing any Triumph competing.
No, absolutely not. It was a normal part of promotion for Britain's motor manufacturers. If you think of BMC, Roots, Standard Triumph, Ford, all entered rallies with their up-to-date products as a way of promoting their toughness and durability. To go back to the Triumph 2000, it was a very good long-distance car, which is why I bought it, to do things like the jogging. Roy Fidler actually won the 1966 British Rally Championship in one. So he did small events down the lanes and was fast enough with his co-driver, I think it was called Alan Jones, to beat everybody, including all the works cars of the day and the semi-works drivers. So they've had a minor career in rallying, but they're very good long-distance cars, and Triumph is a very charismatic brand to be driving.
The thing about Le Jog is, though of course you have times to keep, etc., classic rallying, unless you're doing things like the Roger Albert Clark, which is still a proper rally for want of a better description, a lot of the classic rallies are not speed events anymore, are they?
They can't be on the public road. I mean, the days of speed events on the public road died a long time ago, back in the 60s, probably with the Gulf London rally in this country, which was dangerously fast, frankly. And on the continent of Europe, things like the Liège-Rome-Liège, the French Alpine Rally, which had incredibly high average speeds on open public roads, just fell foul of tourism. So the short answer to your question is no. I did 2 years of stage rallying about the turn of the century with Hugh Wiley as a co-driver, and enjoyed it, but there was little point in pedaling a 1 litre Mini. You're going to be at the back whatever you do. But it was a good experience and good driving technique experience.
Now, as we move on a little, I mean, you've just written a book on what are technically still your favourite rally cars, the Mini Cooper 1961 to 2000. Though a proper Mini Cooper is now, as you said, the reason you stopped with yours was it suddenly became staggeringly valuable. The passion for the Mini Cooper, what I refer to as the real Mini Cooper, has never abated, has it? I mean, these little cars designed by Sir Alex Issigonis still capture the imagination, be it a Cooper or an ordinary Mini.
Absolutely, and actually the humble Minis, the 850s and the little shopping varieties that many of us will remember our parents and relatives driving back in the day, are now becoming very valuable indeed. They're just great cars. I mean, my day job is a professor of design in Plymouth College of Art out in the southwest of England, and I can tell you as a professional that the design of the original Mini is just superb. It is an object lesson in how to design a small car. Okay, it's a long time ago now, 60 plus years that it came out, but it's a fabulous piece of design that still works well today. Only yesterday I saw one on the road, little old lady going to her local store. Absolutely looks fine, drives as well as it ever did, perfectly good for going shopping.
And they're incredible, be it a Cooper or a little basic 850, they are incredible fun to drive, aren't they?
Oh, brilliant, they're like go-karts, particularly if you hot up the engine, you've got lots of power. I mean, one of the problems we came up with my rallying version, which was registered 977 ARX, was that we began to get so much power through the front wheels, it was becoming undrivable. I think we hit 130 horsepower by the end of it on split Webers and limited slip differential at Salisbury Diff, if you've ever driven one. I mean, it was verging on undrivable.
Yeah.
It was getting dangerous.
Now, what tempted you to write the book? Because I'm not being funny, there's no shortage of books on Minis, as I will testify, because on the shelves behind me I have about 6 of them.
Well, what got me going was that I was commissioned back in 1999 by Monty Watkins, who was then editor of Mini World magazine, and he pointed out that some of the people from the BMC Works team were beginning to become ill and elderly and sick, and a few of them had already passed away, and would be a good idea if we went round and we did in-depth interviews with everybody. So I started with the mechanics and the drivers and the navigators, and then I kind of widened my grasp, and in the end, over a period of 10 years, I interviewed 50 people who were associated with the Mini Cooper, the Mini and its development. And I sat there, and these interviews were published periodically in the magazine, and they were very great, but I had all this information, and I thought this would make a great basis for a book, because not only have I got my own experience of Minis, but I've now got quotes from people directly firsthand, some of who are now dead. So I sat down about a couple of years ago with the encouragement of a friend who's a journalist and started to put it together, and it just fell together so easily because I could just literally reach out across my living room and pull a quote off the shelf, and there you've got real gold. I didn't have to repeat the tales that other people have been telling, some of them completely incorrect.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to go to second-hand information all the time, which was just great.
I was going to say, that's one of the things, you mentioned it there. I think one of the things you've got to be careful of, because I used to do a lot of writing, not as much anymore, but it's separating fact from fiction, because certain cars like Mini Coopers, myths start, and the myths are told that many times they become truth, and I suppose the problem is sifting out the myths.
It's extremely difficult, and I know my fellow writers also found that it is very hard to separate myth from fact, particularly as Isigonis used to indulge himself in myth making, and then he would believe his own myths, and it just became kind of very difficult to sort out what was true and what was false. But I have to say, Isigonis' biographer Gillian Barsley did a tremendous job in trying to get to the truth about the man from his records.
Yeah.
And she was very helpful to me. She gave me a long interview and encouraged me in my own book writing, and other people as well. I should say that I did work, when I first left college, I spent a year working for Alex Moulton, who was the suspension genius behind the original Mini.
Yeah.
And he told me many things, again, firsthand, that were very, very useful and gave me introductions to other people. So I tried hard in that book not to put anything in I couldn't verify. And although I don't suppose it's perfect, it's as good as anybody could make it, I suspect.
Yeah, I mean, just to slightly sidetrack, I once wrote a very large article on the Porsche 959, and those 4,000 words took such generating, it was incredible, because there are so many non-fabricated stories about the 959 that it becomes nigh on impossible. I was even fortunate enough to talk to such as Jürgen Barth and other people at the Porsche factory who laughed when I told them some of the facts that I'd been given. And I suppose that's the same thing with the Minis. It's trying to work out, are you getting the truth, or are you getting, shall we say, a very interesting long-standing fantasy about it all?
Well, indeed. I mean, it's not really the technical side of the car. It's because that's very well known and well documented, and this BMC put out their own publications way back, which are very useful as ground. It's more the stories that go with legends that go with people. I've had to check and triangulate and speak to all sorts of people to get what I believe to be the truth. There are still some legends which will probably die with people. There's a few things that I don't want to repeat on air, but are contentious, to say the least. But the truth may never come out because there's good reason to hide it, frankly.
Yeah. Now, the other thing you do, you write for one of the big historic classic rallying magazines, do you not, sir?
I do, yes. Well, I write for the Triumph car magazines, but I also write for retrospeed.com, which is a wonderful website run by Peter Baker and his wife Lynn. Peter is a long-standing associate. I recall doing the Welsh rally against him one year, and he kept getting my points and I kept getting his points because the results team could not distinguish us, me being called Peter Barker and he being called Peter Baker. I think it came to a head when I got his hotel bill. Anyway, I confronted this gentleman who laughed. Just
out of interest, who was the more extravagant?
Well, he's much more extravagant. He likes fine wine and hotels that I can't afford. I always tell him I'm the better rally driver because I've had more success, but it's a moot point. Anyway, he's a great friend and I like him very much, and we deliberately try and get people to confuse us because it amuses us. But I write for his website, and I just recently put up an article on the jog, and if the Monte Carlo Historic Rally goes ahead, we'll put up something on that. So it's a great pleasure to keep writing. I just do it because I like it.
I mean, are you expecting the classic Monte Carlo to go ahead?
Well, as of today, and we are recording this in 2021, it doesn't look good. The French government have banned all visitors to France from Britain because of the resurgence of COVID. There's a whole month to go yet. We'll see, but it is looking not very good. I have to say the Automobile Club of Monaco last year were very good, and when it became obvious they couldn't run the event for reasons of COVID, they refunded all of the entry fees to all the competitors, which was very generous of them because they must have incurred costs. And maybe they will be able to do the same again to British competitors. I don't know. It's not a good time for the Rally Monte Carlo Historique at the moment, which is a pity because it's a fabulous event. Simply the biggest festival of classic rallying I've ever been involved in.
Now, whilst the great unknown continues, and by that I mean what I call the old Kung Fu flu, would you anticipate that more classic rallies will be created within the UK? I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, there's Tim Nash's Lombard series, which is going from strength to strength. There's Le Jog, which we hope will continue, even if it can only have UK entrants. Are you anticipating any increase in classic rallying within the UK?
Well, it's a good question. Now, that is a very good question, Mark. I think it's possible if organisers such as Hero, ERA, who organise the jog, if they find that they really are having difficulty in putting on rallies on the continent of Europe, I'm sure they will look again at the British Isles and see if they can squeeze a few more events in. And local motor clubs might be tempted to do such a thing because there's such a pressure of interest. We've got so many great cars and great marques of cars here in Britain, and a long history of rallying, classic and historic and so on. I think there's a possibility that there will. Britain's a wonderful place for rallies. The only problem is it's so overcrowded. And there are, let's say, there are persons around who have moved away from the metropolis and wish the countryside to be in some sort of medieval state. So they're not that keen on a lot of old cars whizzing past of the night. But those people apart, we hope that we can keep up the scene and develop it.
I mean, my knowledge of classic rallying is nowhere near as in-depth as yours. What British or English or UK rallies that have long since become defunct could be brought back?
Well, I think the Targa Rusticana has to stand out. It was run by the Oxford University Motor Drivers Club, and for a long time in the 90s and early 2000s was run by pretty much the original team who ran it in the 1960s and early 70s, I believe. Now, those people some of them are no longer with us, and they've got on in years now, but it could easily be revived by a new generation, and it was a superb event. It used tracks in Wales and local knowledge, and so long as the organisers respect the local car clubs in Wales and cooperate with them, I think it could be a wonderful event again. There was also I keep going about Wales, but it's a great place to go for rallies.
Well, it's more of a religion in Wales, is rallying, than a sport or a pastime.
It is, indeed. There was a wonderful guy called Dennis Cardell who passed away a few years ago, and he organised the Welsh Rally Retrospective and was really a one-man engine for classic rallying in Wales. Again, these things could be brought back. There are still people there who know their stuff. Kenny Owen, who used to run the Lombard Rally years ago. It's possible. It's certainly possible.
Now, if somebody wanted to get into classic rallying, though rallying per se and motorsport per se are not cheap, what would you say would be the perfect entry-level classic rally car?
Ooh, that's very difficult because times move on. We're now in a situation where you can enter 1980s cars in classic rallies, which you couldn't when I started. So I would have a look at hatchbacks of the early 80s. I know some of them have become quite expensive, but there were some very good little rally cars. Talbot Samba is a great car.
Yes.
If we ever get to 90s cars, a Vauxhall Nova, fantastic little car, brilliant handling.
The problem is, when was the last time you saw a Nova? Somebody asked me that the other day. I said, Vauxhall, and they said, more or less said, I can't remember seeing one. I said, I'll hold my hand up. I can't remember seeing one of late.
No, I mean, a lot of them rotted away, of course, and they were cheap cars, not to be maintained particularly well. But anything like that, as time goes on, there's going to be some small and very agile cars with great little overhead cam engines, as was the fashion in those days. Anything from the 1980s to 1990s as it comes along, and then maybe one day you'll be able to enter cars from the early 2000s. So I would pick something small and agile. Britain's not that big. You don't, unless you do a jog or a very long distance event, you don't need a big car. And they're just great on the tests and down the lanes, round the cones. You can have a lot of fun for not that much outlay.
Right. Now, before you go, if somebody wants to get a copy of your book, Mini Cooper, 1961 to 2000, how do they go on, or how do they go about getting themselves a copy of this?
Well, first of all, I'd go onto the publisher's website. It's Amberley Books, if you just use your favourite search engine and find them. I don't have to web address, or do I? Let me have a quick look inside the book. Maybe it's there. It doesn't seem to be. Anyway, it's Amberley Books. Have a look for them. You'll find them. Buy it from them. Failing that, you can go to, of course, your favourite book-selling agencies online. I'm told they're slightly slower to supply than the publishers, because the publishers have stock, and the usual suspects on the internet have to buy stock. They don't hold a lot of stock of the book as obscure as this. But it has sold well. I think to this moment I've sold 200 copies, which is not bad for a small book, as you say, in a crowded market. And certainly people should be able to get hold of it from the publishers or from the major suppliers. They're listed online. It's at the time of broadcasting around £15 a copy. And
which I would say, sir, given the price of some books these days, couldn't even be described as exceedingly reasonable. That is, shall we say, a gift, given some of the prices I pay for some books that I have.
Well, if I told you, Mark, it took 10 years of research went into that book, and 40 years of mini ownership. A great deal of my life has gone into that tiny book. So it's pretty dense. It's like a little fruit cake, but there's a lot in there for your 15 quid.
Peter Barker, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you very much. As I said, it was just a second chance encounter at the ploughing at Grimsby, and I thought, I know that face, that you very kindly agreed to join me on the radio show. But once again, Peter Barker, thanks very much for joining me on the Backseat Driver Radio Show.
It's been a great pleasure, Mark. Thank you very much.
Rarely beaten on price, never beaten on service. Whether it's cars, bikes or commercials, Hodder Tyres are the best in the business. And when it comes to tyre expertise and advice to supplying the correct tyres for your vehicle's specific requirements, nobody comes close to David Lakin and the Hodder Tyres team. So give them a call on 01200 613 192 or visit the website at hoddertyres.co.uk.